How do I like who I am right now? How do I like what I'm becoming? How do I like the steps that I'm going in? How do I like this right now? How do I like what I'm becoming in life? Do I really like who I am and where I'm going right now in life? How do you like me now? This morning I want to bring out about 3 things in the Scriptures. And in Psalms chapter 37, 3 things that really we need to be aware of. 3 things that are vitally important, that when we get to the point that we say, I just don't know anymore. And we get to the point where we're even fed up with ourselves, or we're discontent of what we've become or who we're becoming or what steps we're taking. When we seem to be sliding back spiritually. When we begin to lose focus and lose track of who we really are. You run to Psalms 37 and there's some things here that the psalmist points out that is so crucial to our lives today that we need to understand. Let me share 3 things with you this morning. Number 1, be careful with jealousy of others. Be careful with jealousy of others. Notice in Psalms 37, verse 1 and 2. Fret not. Don't be angry. Don't be upset. Don't get all out of whack. Don't drive yourself nuts. Because of evildoers. Neither be thou envious against workers of iniquity. For they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herbs. You know, one thing that believers have in common is we all suffer from a disease. And we don't even realize it. Sometimes we don't even realize that we all have this disease. It's called type 1 jealousy. Type 1 jealousy. And the amazing part about type 1 jealousy is the Bible speaks all about it. The Bible continuously tells us not to be jealous of one another. In fact, it uses words sometimes like jealousy or jealous, and other times it uses the word envy. In fact, if you notice in the 10 Commandments, it begins with thou shalt have no other gods before me. And it ends with thou shalt not covet. In other words, just absolutely be fanatical over what your neighbor has. And Christian believers today, we expect it from unbelievers or the ungodly people, but Christians today suffer from type 1 jealousy. Right. If you're a student of the Old Testament, you might remember the nation of Israel in the Old Testament and some of the things that they went through. God would raise up a judge or a prophet to lead them. Well, all of a sudden, Israel decided that, there's something we're missing in life. There's something that we're missing. And they went to the prophet, they went to the judge, and they said, we want a king. Samuel went to the Lord and said they want a king. And he said, tell them no, they don't need a king. That's not a good thing. A king will rob from you, steal from you. He'll abuse his power. Don't. That's not a good thing. But they refused to listen. And Israel said, no, we want a king. We want a king. We want somebody to rule over us. We don't want a judge. We don't want somebody just there to handle disputes. We want somebody to rule over us. And they actually said why they wanted that. They said, we want it because everybody around us has it. Everybody else has it. Everybody else has a king. We're the only nation without a king. Everybody has a king but us. We want a king. We want to be like everybody else. And you know what I found? That a lot of times in the Christian life, you really get on fire for God. And you begin to grow spiritually. And then something happens. Satan moves in and he begins to try to take control of your mind. And just like in the Garden of Eden, we begin to listen. And we gradually go down spiritually. We begin to look at what everybody else has and says, you know what? I want God, but I want this also. Oftentimes we begin to wonder, why do people get away with what they do? How do people afford all these expensive grown-up toys and I'm struggling? How do people that don't know the Lord seem to be happier and having more fun than I am? What is wrong? And this just runs through your mind. And you start thinking about what other people do. And then next thing you know, you begin to want both. You're saying, I know that I don't want to give up on God, but man, I sure would enjoy this life here. And what happens is you kind of try to do both. You want to serve God and you want to do the right thing, but yet deep down inside you have this desire to fulfill the flesh. I want to do what other people are doing. Just like Israel wanted a king. Because everybody else did. Sometimes we look over there and say, wow, they just look like they're having so much fun and happier than me. So on one hand I want to serve God. On the other hand I want to do what I want to do. And what happens is, as the Bible describes it, we start to feel faint, weary, tired, wore out. Because we stretch ourselves too thin. He comes up in Psalms, he says, fret not about what the evil people are doing. In other words, the ungodly people. Yes, it looks like they're having fun. Yes, they're ungodly. Yes, if their life don't change, they're going to spend eternity in hell. But God says, don't worry about them. Don't get all uptight. Don't get angry. Because they'll be cut away sooner or later. He gives us another reason that I'll mention later on. But he says, don't get uptight over this. And what we got to be careful about is our jealousy of others. That type 1 disease that we have called jealousy. And we got to remember that our mind starts to wonder and who's behind all this? But Satan himself. So number 1, be careful. Be careful with the judgment of others. Number 2, be content with joy in obedience. Be content with joy in obedience. If you notice verses 3 through 5 in Psalms chapter 37, it says, trust in the Lord and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land that verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thy heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass.